This is AR Fortress West Point capstone team, and this is our Sprint 1 review video. So our agenda for this video will be, we'll go over our product vision again. We'll talk about our sprint goal, a little bit about our capacity. Team will go through our sprint products, and then we'll have a brief reflection about our sprint, and then our plans for future work and future sprints. So for our product vision, our team is trying to make a fully functioning augmented reality application that displays an historically accurate representation of Fort Willis in an exciting way that all users can enjoy.
Since the last sprint, we've been working on finding specific and historically accurate depictions of each deliverable for the augmented reality app. We have met with the archaeologist Paul Hudson, which I will touch on more later, and we've been looking at Trophy Point, Fort Montgomery for the specific types of cannons that were used at the fort. We've also conducted site recon in order to be able to have specific grid coordinates where we want each of the augmented reality pieces to be, and also in order to get a better look at the fort itself so that we can draw up an accurate picture to send to the graphic designer. Additionally, we've been working on the narratives for each of the deliverables, and this includes Colonel Willis's mission statement, the cannon, the musket, the matros, and the lieutenant. We found through our meetings with Colonel Johnson and the archaeologists that the musket that was used by the soldiers at Fort Willis was the French Charleville musket. When we met with the archaeologist Paul Hudson, he showed us that they found many French musket flints at Fort Willis, which also suggests that they were using the French musket. We know that the fort had two 18-pound cannons. We see evidence that possibly the fort was built to accommodate 4, but they only had 2. As for uniforms, we have an accurate depiction of the matros uniform done by the artist Don Troiani. We're having trouble finding depictions of the lieutenant and the colonel uniforms. However, we have reached out to the 6th Connecticut reenactors, and their information was given to us by Colonel Johnson in the hopes of finding an accurate uniform depiction from them. We've also been working a lot on the fort specifications, and we've been cross-referencing a lot of different maps and designs drawn by engineers at the time and then people later on in order to make sure that we have the most historically accurate depiction of the fort and the final product.
So for our sprint goal for Sprint 1, our main objective was to be able to modify last year's capstone application without disrupting the functionality of the application. We also wanted to confirm our team's plan with our stakeholders' vision to make sure that we were on the right path to be able to fulfill the history department's goals for this capstone. For our capacity of this project, we expected to work 123 hours and we completed 117. Here's our burn down chart for this sprint. As you can see, it accurately displays hours for this sprint. However, there's horizontal lines, and this is mainly because we only inputted the hours during the class time, even though we were doing work outside of the class. As you can see in Trello, we spent a lot of time on our Apple Store development, which we didn't expect to. However, it worked out because we were able to get our application approved on the App Store and should be able to download. There were other portions that we did not complete, however, such as like meeting with our stakeholder. Even though we weren't able to meet with our stakeholder, we feel that the work that we have done and that we're going to do in the next couple of weeks, a meeting with him in the future will be more beneficial.
So this is our current progress on our app, and also I'm going to talk about some of the small improvements we made so far on the app. So this is a recording of a demo that I recorded from my iPhone X. So the camera detects a plane and anchors the object onto the plane. That's why the object is able to stay on the same location as before. There are some other objects. There is a map. It's a big map, as you can see here. And then the third object is a quill. It's the same concept as the first one. So we have a few objects like this, small objects that we could make. So we decided to add an object of our own to test out our ability to manipulate ARKit and Xcode in general. So we decided to add a pumpkin, as you can see here. The pumpkin will spawn at camera location and will stay there anchored. So as you can see, a pumpkin floating there, stay in that location. The pumpkin is rendered correctly without any problem. Another small improvement I made was, as you can see here, we were trying to test out the user interface, and one of the thing I noticed was before the app had a bad looking exit button here, so we were just able to fix it by simple few lines of code, and that shows us an ability to manipulate the way we want the UI to be.
So one of the other major feature improvements that we did over the course of this sprint was first uploading and then getting our app approved on the actual App Store so that it can be pushed out to the App Store for general use and have anyone be able to download it onto their phones as long as they have a newer updated phone. This was a really important sprint goal for us because it meant that having a finished product on the App Store would decrease our time frame for actually pushing up updates. And that means that we had a finished product uploaded, which was something that the year group before us didn't manage to do before they left. So as you can see on the App Store Connect right here, we have Fortress West Point iOS 1.3 ready for sale. This is the App Store information page where we have some general information about the app itself. And here is the actual screen where we uploaded information about our app in order to get it approved. We got the app pushed back 3 times before it actually got approved, as can be shown in the App Store versions. You can see last year group's work in trying to submit their app starting in April 25th and then ultimately May 5th, where they still weren't able to get it approved. We started uploading the app to here on October 22nd, and it finally got approved on October 31st. So this was a really big achievement for us for this sprint. You can see through this page how long approximately it took for the submission to first get uploaded onto it, and then waiting for review by the actual App Store, and then how long it took for it to get rejected or pass through, which was normally a couple hours. So they're pretty good about quick turnaround times, but now that we actually have a product on the App Store, pushing up updates will make everything even faster and easier. So some of the reasons that we got rejected were, the first time we got rejected was because the pop-up window that came up when the user first opened the app asking for their location didn't have a specific reason why it asked for their location. So we had to put that in as a more detailed explanation. The second reason we got rejected on October 27th was because of the icon that the previous year group had created, because it had the image of an iPhone on it. And then on October 31st, obviously, we got approved after we had fixed all of those issues.
So our app is finally on the App Store. So you could download it on the App Store right now by typing Fortress West Point on the search bar. And once you get in there, you could install it right away. It is around 138 megabytes.
This is a showcase of the ongoing communication between the graphic designers and the Capstone team. Adam Takix is the Director of Business Development at a company called Industry. Terry Hoy is the Vice President and Director of Sales from a company called Gravity Jack. Justina Janica is the Chief Operations Officer from a company called 1000 Realities. Kevin Morrow is the Senior Account Executive from a company called Zico Corporation. And Alexander Harvey is a Sales Associate from Cortex Studios. We've also reached out to last year's graphic designer, Jason Lux Chambers, on LinkedIn. All these graphic designers have given us positive feedback and are all looking forward to potentially working with us. Where we're at in the process, though, is developing a requirements presentation so they can give us a better idea of a sales quote. Additionally, there was work involved with creating the Apple app icon in order to meet the requirements to successfully upload the app into the App Store. This was done from scratch to avoid any sort of copyright infringement laws. Additionally, the graphic design teams have sent us mock-ups of some of the capabilities that they can implement in our application. Here we have a small augmented reality car that they were able to make. Note the cords in the background to give you an idea of the relative size. And also note the tread patterns on the tires to allow the viewer an insight on the type of detail that these companies are capable of.
So some of our reflections after working on this project for the past sprint: factors to consider for anchor points and 3D imaging relating to the restoration of Fort Willis. At the beginning of the year, we talked to the history department and they said that Fort Willis would be getting at least a partial restoration. So we just need to make sure that we go and meet with the stakeholders and understand how exactly that would be constructed and whether or not we could have an input relating to how we could possibly put anchor points into that for better use for our app. Second, putting in hours in Trello properly. We saw using the burn down chart that people were putting in hours just during the class times and not actually during out of class times when they were also working on the project and putting in the hours. So we just need to make sure that we're getting on people so that they're putting in their hours when they're actually doing them. And for the last, just understanding time frame that it takes for certain activities to be completed. So for instance, we allotted 6 hours of time for uploading and getting our app approved on the App Store. However, it ended up taking us 15 hours. And that'll come along with just getting a more detailed understanding of the app. Really, we need to think more deeply and carefully about how we're going to distribute out our time so that we can make sure we're accurately planning for it.
As far as for planning for future sprints, we had to take a look at our product roadmap because originally we had planned for the app to be in the App Store a lot later. We'd actually had it in Sprint 4, but since we were able to accomplish that goal a lot quicker, we re-looked at our product roadmap and adjusted it. Our main goals for the next sprint is to make sure that we have an active contract with our designer so that when we're off on Christmas leave, the designer can still be working on the graphics for our application. And when we get back, we can start putting them into our application rather than having to deal with that next semester. Another main goal is to work on our basic image anchoring so that, again, we can put our graphics in once we come back for next semester.